Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Katie and I'm one of the registered dietitians at the Grand River Community Health Center. So, after having some conversations in recent weeks with friends and family members and reading through some conversation threads online for a few professional groups that I'm in, I seem to see a bit of a theme, or at least it's come up a few times, around concerns about weight gain during this time of physical distancing. So, in light of this video today, I was hoping to spend a few minutes just to discuss some of the things that might be happening and to offer a couple of suggestions to hopefully help alleviate some of the concerns folks might be having around weight and or their food choices right now. So the first point I want to make is around our body's response to stress. So I recognize that maybe not everyone's stressed. People might be experiencing a variety of emotions right now, and also recognizing those emotions might change from moment to moment. But I know I have heard a number of people share that they have experienced an increase in stress in the last couple of months. So when we are stressed, our body produces a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol actually increases our appetite and can promote fat storage. So this release of cortisol is actually part of the body's fight or flight response to stress. And so it may have been helpful if you were being chased by a wild animal. But in most cases in our current society, the stressors that we're facing are things like work or traffic, though not so much now, but things that aren't going to require that kind of a physical response. So in addition to cortisol increasing our appetite, I also wanted to touch on emotions because emotions can be a trigger for eating for some people. So sometimes it's emotions like happiness. We're celebrating something and that's triggering us to eat for comfort or pleasure, or not necessarily out of hunger. However, we may also be triggered to eat when we're stressed, when we're anxious, when we're tired, bored. So maybe some of those less wanted emotions. So I want to just take a moment here to let you know that emotional eating is not bad or wrong. So my purpose in mentioning this isn't to say you must stop all emotional eating. I'm guessing that we've all engaged in emotional eating, myself included, at some point in our life. And also wanting just to message that for those who think they may be doing some emotional eating or perhaps more emotional eating right now, I would really encourage you not to judge yourself. I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves in these challenging times is some self-compassion and space to do what we need to do to care for ourselves and to cope. And sometimes that might be food. However, while food may provide sort of that temporary boost in mood, that chocolate cake tasted really good, it typically doesn't improve or resolve whatever emotions were triggering that eating, such as stress or sadness or anxiety, in the long term. In fact, you might actually find that using food as a coping tool ends up bringing in more unwanted emotions, such as guilt or shame over eating when you weren't hungry, or eating a food that you think you shouldn't have, that you think is bad. So that's kind of one challenge with emotional eating, is that it's usually not a long-term solution. And in addition, it can also become a challenge when it's occurring often enough that it's starting to impact your health. So wanting to honor our health as well as nourishing our body and soul. So if you're finding that you are leaning on foods for comfort more often than normal right now, one thought might be just to keep like a food and mood type of log for just a week or so. It doesn't have to be months on end, but just giving yourself some data to work with and just observing what emotions seem to keep popping up. If there is any sort of pattern or trend or things that you're noticing, just because this information can then be really helpful in giving you an idea of brainstorming some alternative options for addressing or coping with those emotions that seem to be triggering that eating. So, for example, if you find that stress is your main trigger, are there other activities that might help to reduce that stress more effectively for a longer period of time, or they're going to impact your health in a positive way? So there's no right option here. It's really whatever you find that works for you, and there might need to be kind of a bit of trial and error and trying some different things to figure out what things fits your lifestyle or your needs or interests, what makes sense for you. But it could be things like reading, like listening to some relaxing music. I know some people enjoy like meditation, or there's all sorts of different options, but just kind of starting to brainstorm what things might be helpful beyond food. So another thing to consider is that our pre-COVID-19 routines and schedules have likely had to change, given that a lot of the services we may have accessed aren't available or may have changed the way that they provide service. And we're being advised to physically distance ourselves from those outside our home. And so recognizing that this loss or change in routine can mean several things in terms of the impact it can have on weight and on our food choices. So first of all, circling back to my comments on emotional eating, there may be some activities that you were relying on previously to help you cope with those emotions that weren't related to food, that aren't available right now as an option given all the various closures. And so I recognize that without these options, you may find that you are selecting food as a coping tool more often. In addition, for those who now find that they don't have as much structure to their days now that they're at home more often, you may find that you are turning to food as a way to fill time, and just that sort of that accessibility to the fridge and being in the house more, that is also something that can happen for folks. So again, I want to note that these responses are perfectly normal. And again, I encourage you not to judge yourself for it. But again, would just encourage you to brainstorm some alternative ideas based on what's accessible to you at this time in order to build some new structure in your day and build up a new menu of options for coping with any emotions you might be struggling with right now. So, we're still able to go potentially for walks, reading, listening to music. Maybe you want to engage your creative side. And just remembering that it doesn't have to be taking on a big project or learning a new skill. If you want to do that, that's great. But these activities can be like very simple things that you're already comfortable with, and they don't have to take a lot of time. Because really the goal is to find things that are going to be helpful to you and not things that are creating stress. And then the final point that I wanted to make in terms of things that might be impacting your food choices is related to the potential changes in what ingredients you might have available in your home right now. So I know for myself, I've noted that there are some items that seem to not be quite as readily available in grocery stores as they once were. So a few examples: my family uses canned beans and tortillas and tomato sauce quite regularly. And we have unfortunately not always been able to purchase these items when we wanted them. And so knowing that that might mean that some of the ingredients that you yourself rely on to make nourishing meals for yourself and or for your family may not be as available, which can make it trickier to kind of nourish our bodies how we want to. In addition, I feel many individuals seem to be, which I mean makes sense, but seem to be going to the grocery store less often. And so that means you might also find, and I know I've experienced this as well personally, that you run out of some of your more perishable ingredients before your next planned trip. And so then kind of having to fill that gap perhaps with meals that aren't the same balance that you would normally have. And again, through no fault of your own, it's just kind of the situation that we're in right now. And my ultimate goal for folks is always to provide nutrition and nourish yourself, whatever that might look like, and getting that fuel in your body, and recognizing that they aren't always going to be Canada's Food Guide balanced meals. So I just wanted to conclude this video by noting that I think in these times of uncertainty and with a number of things not in our control right now, it isn't really that surprising that some people may be looking for something they can control. That being said, the weight our body is at is impacted by a number of factors beyond just what we eat. And also that food restrictions for the purpose of weight loss can be more harmful than helpful to our mental well-being in particular, and typically aren't successful long-term. So if there's one message you walk away with, it would just be that I encourage you to eat to nourish both your body and your soul, to practice some self-compassion. If you do find that your emotions are guiding your food choices or you're eating a bit more than normal, and to look for healthy ways to cope with any unwanted emotions that you might be experiencing right now. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm thinking of you all and wishing you all good health, and very much looking forward to the day when I can run classes in the center again. All right, so take very good care, everyone, and I will hopefully post something again soon.